Hello again, welcome to this edition of Portsmouth This Week, the 31st of March. Our guest today is Chris DiIuro, the School Finance Director here in Portsmouth, and he's going to talk about their operating budget and give us an overview. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Thank you for having me.
I wonder if we could start with a little bit about your background and how you got into this kind of esoteric field of school finance.
Sure. Yeah, I started with the Portsmouth School Department back in 2013. This was my first foray into the educational field. Before that, I had worked for about 17 years at CVS Health, and I had, before that, been with public accounting firm Ernst & Young as a CPA, and I'm a graduate of East Greenwich High School and Boston College.
Okay. And
married with 2 kids.
There you go. And do you still live in East Greenwich?
I do.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you drive over the bridge
I
every
do.
day.
It's a beautiful drive every day.
It is.
In the summer, anyway.
I wonder if we could talk a little bit about the school or the budget process and how the school budget melds into the town budget and where we are now in that process.
Sure, and before I do that, maybe I'll just, if anybody wants to pause the show, they can go to our website right at the portsmouthschools.ri.com, right on the front page. They can download and print off the budget and follow along if they wanted to. It's there for anybody to download. But our budget process it's a fairly long one. Believe it or not, we start back in November. And we lay out our timeline. We get it approved by the school committee. We have a meeting with our principals, our directors. We ask all of them to get back to us right before Christmas with their budget requests. We then take the month of January to review them, meet individually with each principal, each department head. We invite our school committee finance subcommittee members, of which there are 3, to attend any of those meetings, and we get pretty good attendance. That's where we sit down, talk through the requests, prioritize. After that, we kind of put it all together, and we meet with our school committee in February and March. This year we did it 3 times, just based on the calendar, and we get our budget over to the town by the March 24th deadline per the town charter. And I would say that during this process, we are meeting with the town administrator, the finance director, the assistant finance director at the town. We're having conversations. Lines of communication are open. We just don't want any surprises at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think that's great. Believe it or not, you probably know in the past, a lot of this coordination and Portsmouth would like to see this continue. And kudos to Rich Rayner and Ann O'Reilly for keeping up the contacts there.
Yeah, they have a terrific relationship. I mean, they're meeting constantly, and I have heard, in the past that was not the case. So right now, the folks in the town should be very happy.
That's great. I'd love to see that. Okay, this year's school budget, can you give us a quick overview?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So, the good news is total expenditures for our budget are only going up 0.3%. So we essentially held the line. I get a lot of, and I got this question from our school committee on several occasions, are we able to accomplish what we want with that money? Are we trying to hit some artificial number? And the answer to that is no. We want to be fiscally responsible, and we are. We also want to make sure we build our budget to accomplish all of the goals and things that we need to do to move the needle for our students. So some of the things that we put in this year as priorities are we're moving our grade 4 back to the elementary. So there's about 160 kids in 3rd grade now who would be moving to the middle school. Next year they won't. They'll stay at their elementary schools because grade 4 will be there. We are also investing in our project Lead the Way, which is a career tech program that ultimately is an engineering program that'll be in our middle school and high school. And we're also continuing our rollout of our one-to-one student device at the middle school. So 6th graders are getting Chromebooks issued to them that they use during the day in their classroom and can also take home with them.
Okay, do they keep those going forward?
They do. They take them with them. So the current 6th grade this year, when they go to 7th grade next year, those devices are theirs. They'll take them with them and they'll have them throughout their career.
Okay, and we decide that's how we phase this in. We don't do anything with the high school right now?
So in our budget for next year, we are going to start thinking about the high school. So what we're doing next year, we have a position that was created, a new position called a tech integration coach. This teacher's job will be to work with the 9th grade teachers for a year to get them prepared to have students using these devices in their classrooms, so that in the following year we'll do a grade 6 rollout, because every 6th grade class will have it, but we'll also have a grade 9. So that'll be the first year, probably in 18-19, when high school will have their first devices.
I'd love to get somebody in here to talk about how they use these things in the classroom sometime later on. I'm sorry, go ahead. So,
Sorry, so yeah, so
0.3 sounds like a very small increase.
Yes, yes, it is, especially considering the fact that we're accomplishing so much with all of our priorities that we put in. From a revenue standpoint, obviously revenues need to go up 0.3% as well. We need to have a balanced budget, but we're I talk about this all the time at our school committee. We're in year 7 of 10 years of state aid reductions to Portsmouth.
Right.
So when they put the new funding formula in place 7 years ago, they had what they call winners and losers, and the winners were receiving more money. That was phased in over 7 years, so this will be their last year of getting increases. The losers, of which Portsmouth was a pretty big loser, about half our aid is being cut over 10 years, about $250,000 a year. So that's happening, that's in our budget, and because of that, our request to the town for an appropriation has to go up 1.4%, not 0.3%. That keeps us whole.
Yeah. Well, I think it's kind of amazing, because we all know the price of everything goes up. And I would imagine, like you say, you're bringing on a new position with this technology person. That's got to be relatively expensive. It doesn't seem like a very big hit to come in with, to be honest.
Yeah, no, we have some really good savings. We work really hard at trying to find savings in our budget. And one of the things that we were able to do last year, I've talked a lot about this as well, is we had 2 really big energy efficiency projects. The first one was we replaced all of the boilers in all 4 of our schools. Those were, I think there were 11 boilers. We replaced them with 10. The new ones are very high efficiency. We're saving about 30% of our gas usage, which is a lot of money when you do the math on that. And we also had all of our buildings, we had a lighting project where we relamped all of our buildings with high efficiency LED lighting, where we're also seeing about a 30% reduction in our electricity usage. So those 2 projects alone probably gave us, I'd say, about $150,000 worth of savings in our budget. Yeah,
that's great.
On an annual basis.
And that's part of your capital improvement plan going forward, I guess, right?
It is. That was part of our 5-year capital plan. That was year 1. We're in year 2, and I'm sure we'll talk about year 3, which is our request for next year.
Yeah. What were some of the main drivers of the increase? And you mentioned one or two, but
And the expense side or the revenue side?
and the expense side.
Yeah, on the expense side, really, and anybody who has our budget, we have a little graph in there, and you see how we break it out. But when we talk about school department expenses, really, salaries and benefits are probably 70 to 75% of our costs. And those increases are, that's collectively bargained, and so we know that our staff, our teachers and our non-certified staff are going to get 2.5% or 2%, depending on what union they're in. Benefits go up every year, although this year we do have, I'm happy to say that our benefits are actually going down slightly due to some plan design changes that we negotiated for our certified staff, our teachers, and also our administrators. We follow the same plan. So those kind of offset, but really when you think about what's increasing, it's going to be salaries, it's going to be benefits, and then we're looking for savings.
That's kind of what I thought, and I think everybody should understand that. I guess to me the idea is, though, that these are our school kids. This is school. This is very important to this town, and we want to maintain our reputation, I think, as being having a very robust and professional school system, which I think we are. And I think you need to expect that that's going to continue. Those collective bargaining and contracts essentially just go forward.
Yeah, I mean, we have a great relationship with both of our unions and our school department, and both of our last negotiating rounds, we got to what I thought were, and I think they believe also, really good solutions that work for everybody. Everybody has to give up something, Everybody's got their priorities, but it's always best when we work together.
Well, some of these other factors, you mentioned state aid, and just want to let you know that we had our state rep and majority whip, Jay Edwards, in here shortly ago, and I asked him the same question about the state aid, and he promised me they'd be taking a look at it, but it almost sounds like it's one of these things that is going to be very difficult to change, but I think we got our guys on it anyway. So if there's any way, I'm sure Jay and Dennis Canario and Jim Sevety and our other representatives will be on the case. These savings, these efficiency savings, I'm quite amazed at the amount. I mean, the idea that you could change the light bulbs and save 30% of your electricity bill, this is not chump change. This is
it's big
very significant.
It's big money, and technology has just come so far from where we were and used to be. I was amazed myself when we did it.
Yeah, I asked you this before, and I realize it's not necessarily within your purview, but generally, what is the condition of our schools going forward here?
Yeah, I think our schools are in actually really good shape, especially on a comparable basis to other districts. That doesn't mean that we don't have things we need to do. We have a lot that we need to do. When we put our 5-year plan together, we really focused on infrastructure, so things like the boilers that were 50 or 60 years old.
Yeah, that's a major undertaking.
Yep. All the roofs, we have roofs that are at the end of their life, and we want to get at that before we start having major leaking problems. Electrical upgrades in our buildings, we have the original electrical. So if we wanted to put, say, we've talked a lot about putting air conditioning in the middle school library. Well, guess what? I don't think we have the electrical capacity to do that right now. So those are the things we've focused on. But all in all, our custodians, our maintenance folks do a terrific job. Our schools are clean. Our athletic facilities, as you know, are new at the high school and in good shape. I think in our next 5-year plan, our school department would like us to move a little bit more from the infrastructure piece, and let's do some more renovation of our classrooms. Let's bring them into the 21st century learning environment, that type of thing.
Yeah. I think generally speaking, we're in really good shape.
I would totally agree, yeah.
I know you've been doing some outsourcing of things. I just wonder how that's going and how you see it continuing.
Yeah, so this is one area where we partnered with the town, and I think the result has been tremendous. So we, a year ago, went out to bid to find a firm to manage our facilities and maintenance department. This is not the on-the-line workers, this is just the management of it, and so we have somebody from Aramark now. Matt Murphy is our facility director for both the town and the schools.
Okay.
And it's been working out really, really well. The things that a large corporation can bring to the table, so for example, recently we went through an effort where Matt had a team come down from Aramark, and they inventoried all of the equipment, mechanical equipment in our buildings, entered all that into a software system that now provides us with a preventative maintenance program where we know when we have to change the oil on this thing or change a filter on this thing, and it just happens. It kicks out, we do it, so that we're making sure that we're maintaining our equipment, because it's a lot cheaper to maintain stuff than it is to fix it when it breaks or get a new one.
Well, I think it's great that you're sharing these services with the town, because it makes sense. It certainly does,
Absolutely.
We talked briefly about moving the middle school to the elementary school, and I guess what do you think the impact will be, if any, on the students and their parents? I mean,
well, we've done some polling on that, where we've sent out surveys. The superintendent has, and of course, you get some mixed results. There's always going to be people that aren't going to be happy, but I'd say at least 90, if not 95% of the responses that came back were very positive. The parents, they love the elementary schools. To be honest, grade 4 is a little young to be in the middle school, so they're happy to see them stay, have another year of maturity, be on the bus with the younger kids. Grade 3 and 4 tend to normally kind of go together, 5 and 6 and 7 and 8. So from an operational standpoint, not going to be a big impact. We have the space, we have the classrooms, so it'll work out pretty nicely.
That certainly makes sense, and how many schools are affected here? What do we have? 2 elementary schools?
Yes, we have Hathaway Elementary and Melville Elementary. So there are 4 classrooms at Hathaway. There are 3 at Melville, and so the middle school will be losing those 7 classrooms.
Okay, and what was our reason to do this again? Just school load or something?
No, it really gets back to it was the right thing to do. I think if you went back, and I wasn't here, but if you went back to the time when grade 4 and 5 moved to the middle school, that was, I think, done out of necessity so they can close Elmhurst. They needed to save the money. I think in a perfect world, nobody would have wanted to move 4 and 5 to the middle school. Certainly not 4.
So this is kind of repairing something that we did to ourselves.
I think it's getting a second bite at the apple. Yep.
Yeah. Well, that's great. It makes a lot of sense. Where are you in your capital budget process here going forward?
Okay, so we're requesting in our budget our 3rd year of our 5-year plan, which is $599,000. We're looking to fund that really in 3 ways. We are able to identify, working with the town, some monies left over from prior year projects where we came in under budget. And we're also getting housing aid from the state because all of the items on our 5-year plan are approved for 35% reimbursement to the town. So with all of that, we're looking at maybe about $222,000 of new money, ultimately over a couple of years to get that $599,000 done.
Okay, and what would this be for?
This is going to be for another roof. Again, we're heavy on roofs, we're heavy on boilers, and also some electrical work at some of our schools.
Facilities type stuff.
Yeah, it's infrastructure type stuff.
Well, and I agree, it's something you can't put off. You need to do this stuff.
No, you need to do it, absolutely, and we have a good plan to get it done over 5 years. We're not trying to get everything done in 1 year. We prioritized it, and we want to get it done so when we're done with our 5-year plan, we're where we need to be.
Okay, so we're in the 3rd year of a 5-year plan. At what point do you start planning or thinking about the next 5-year plan?
Believe it or not, we'll be probably starting that process next year. The process itself, working with the state, the school building authority, Department of Education, that is in itself probably a 6 to 9 month process, and you have to start back it up from there as well, especially since I think in our next 5-year plan, we will be looking at renovations and not infrastructure. So we'll probably want to make sure we have an architectural firm come in, tell us what best practices.
Right.
We'll probably want to have community members involved. It's not something that we'll want to rush through. So we'll probably start that. My guess is at the end of next year.
Yeah. Now, the thing is, as I recall, you have a strategic plan that you're kind of working to here.
We do, and that's actually in our budget. So anybody that goes to the website and downloads it, it's in there.
Yeah.
There's a budget message, and the very first document in the budget is a budget message from the superintendent. And behind that is a presentation, and that presentation completely connects the dots and aligns what that strategic plan and what those goals were to what's in our budget. So it's laid out right there for people to see how we are actually making sure that we're connecting those things.
Okay, so people should go to the school website and take a look at it.
Absolutely, it's right in the front.
That's great. Let's talk about the safety capital budget issue. This is something kind of new, I think, for Portsmouth.
Yeah, it is. We take safety very seriously, our students and our staff, and providing a safe work environment. And, we've had a real focus on this, I'd say, in the last year and a half. We've got really kind of a 3-pronged approach to it. There's 3 areas we're focusing on. The first one is our human capital. So you may know that we now have 2 school resource officers in the department. So we have 1 at the high school and we have 1 at the middle school. We also have a part-time safety coordinator that the school department has hired, who is a retired Middletown police officer. We're very lucky to have him, Alan Garcia. And we also created a school-town safety security committee. And this committee has myself, the superintendent, our safety coordinator. It has the town administrator. It's got the police chief. It's got the fire chief. It has our PE health department head at the high school, and it has a member of our non-certified staff, our union president, and it has a principal. So we have every stakeholder involved, And what we're really trying to do here is make sure we have coordination and communication so that we're not doing anything in a vacuum, and that we're leveraging the people who have expertise in safety. And then the third part of it is our building improvements. So we know that there are certain things that are out there that we can do to our buildings to harden them, to make them
locks
safer.
and things like that. Yeah.
Yep, lockdown hardware, securing the entryway of our buildings. They call that like a man trap, putting like ballistic glass in there so people can't break through, so we can control who enters and who doesn't enter the building. So what we did is we put together, last year, our safety coordinator and our facilities director went through and did an individual school safety assessment. There's a state checklist that we get trained by the state police on how to fill out. After doing that, we were able to identify where we might have had some deficiencies or where we can make some improvements. We prioritized those. We then took that list, made it into a 3-year plan. As we talked earlier, we don't like to try to do everything all at once, but we want to make sure we do it and do it well. Put together a 3-year plan. We took that to our safety committee. We ran it by the police chief, the fire chief, everybody. We had good discussion. They recommended that we bring that forward. We did. We took it to our facility subcommittee of the school committee. They approved it. We took it to our school committee. They approved it, and now we've included it in our budget that we've submitted to the town. We hope to get funding on that as well.
Okay, so people can see what the funding looks like from your budget.
Absolutely.
This safety coordinator, what is his role generally day to day? I mean,
Sure. So he holds many hats. So one of the things he does is he's our safety coordinator. He's also our residency officer and our truancy officer. So he really does all three things.
see the guy that knocks on the door to see
He
if
does, yeah, he does do that. So it's more about awareness. So at the beginning of the year, he did a 4-hour training for all of our staff, and to my knowledge, it's the first time that our staff has been trained in safety. So we had 4 hours is a lot to do all at once, so we did it in 2 sections. We did 2 hours on our orientation day, and then our first PD day, we did 2 more. And then he's in our schools, he's meeting with our teachers, he's answering questions, he helps us with our comprehensive safety plan. We worked with the police and an outside agency last year, and he drove this to put together a comprehensive incident management response program that we have in place. So in case something happens now, we kind of open a box and we have all our instructions put together. So he's got a lot of different hats and roles that he wears for us.
Yeah, I think it's great that we have 2 SROs, because I know
Fabulous.
that SRO position at the high school has become vital just about. And
Yes.
I know Maddie's out there doing a great job.
Fantastic
She's
job.
a good kid.
She is.
I think it's interesting and probably logical that you guys are addressing this safety issue now, and particularly because it does relate, as you said, to capital improvements going forward. I mean, it's not like it's just something you just decide overnight to try and do. Are teachers getting involved in the sense that they could recommend things, or how does that work?
Yeah, so
And how
Alan,
often does this committee meet, for example?
so the committee meets about 3 times a year. We met last summer. That was our first meeting. We kind of set what we wanted to accomplish. We met again back in, I think it was February, to review the capital plan, and we'll meet again probably this summer after school ends to kind of talk about what our plans, assuming we get our budget approved, talk about what our plans are for the capital and what our goals are for next year. Teachers can get involved. I mean, Alan's in the schools, he's walking, I know he talks to them, he goes into the classrooms. Of course, they have a representative on the safety committee as well that can...
Now, is he in uniform?
Yes, well, he's our department head for physical education and health.
Okay.
Yep, so he's a member of NEA Portsmouth, he's a teacher and a department head.
Okay, so he's not in police uniform?
Oh, no, he's a teacher.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay,
Yep.
good. So he's already in the schools, kids know him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is always a good thing.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's great. And one of the problems with having these big committees I've found is that, and if they meet infrequently, it's very hard to get things done. I presume these people meet offline individually.
They do. Our safety coordinator is, he's working with the police, he's working with the fire, I wouldn't say daily, but whenever we need to, he's over there, he's talking with them. We really wanted this committee to be more of a committee that could help facilitate communication and coordination. The risk here was that, the schools wanted to do something, important around safety, and we were going to spend some money on safety, and that we would maybe do something that wouldn't align with what the police chief wanted or what the fire chief wanted, And we got so far down the road that we're in our own little bubble. And we didn't want to do that. We wanted to make sure that we're leveraging folks whose primary job it is to keep everybody safe.
Yeah, exactly.
And then use that to kind of filter and vet what we were going to do. So it's not just capital. Anytime we were thinking of doing something, we talked about that briefly, about that comprehensive incident management program we put in place, and we did that with the police and with the fire. So they actually, Alan Garcia drove around with our consultant, with our public safety officers, and they put that together. So instead of us doing that again in a vacuum, we want to make sure we're leveraging and communicating, and if we're going in the wrong direction, we want to know that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Let me give you a hypothetical here.
Sure.
Bill Gates comes to town and throws as much money as you'd possibly want at you. What would you do? I mean, or let's make it more reasonable. Let's say we had some wealthy person that came in and wanted to subsidize what's going on at the schools. What are some of the key issues you'd like to do, but just don't see the funds coming for?
Oh boy, I think if I had access to some funds, I know that our school committee and our superintendent would say that we should be taking that money and remodeling some of our classrooms. We should be bringing them up to the 21st century learning environment. Some of the classrooms at the high school have been updated before I got here. I think there was a renovation of one of the wings. Some of the wings are pretty old, and if we could go in there and we could update and remodel and bring those a little more modern, that's where I think we'd all probably land with using that money.
Yeah, you know, it does help sometimes, I think, to think like that, because when you put your budget together, you always sort of have the bottom line in your mind anyway. And I think if you think outside the box sometimes, you'll come up with ideas that may make sense going forward in these 5-year, capital improvement plans.
Yeah, we very much try to balance being fiscally responsible, which we want to do to the taxpayers of Portsmouth, but also make sure that we're not providing the minimum. I don't think anybody in our school department wants to provide the minimum. We want to provide, the best we can. And I think that our budget, I'm very proud of this budget. I think that, and I've gotten that question from 3 school committee members, is this the minimum? Are we just doing for the money that we have? The answer is no. I think based on some of the savings we have and some of the, we didn't talk about it, but we continue to have savings on our special ed education program that we insourced.
How does that work?
We used to be part of a collaborative.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah,
got
now
out of it a couple of years ago.
Got out of it a couple of years ago, and essentially 2 things: the way the collaborative was being funded, I would say was not fair to Portsmouth. It was not based on utilization. It was based on some other formulas, and so, in my opinion, we were subsidizing other districts. I know that's the way it happened for a long time. It just didn't feel right to me. And then the way we run our programs, the way we manage our programs, our special education director, our teachers, doing such a great job that we're not cutting services, we're not doing any less, we're just doing probably more for less money.
Chris, we're just about out of time, but I'd like to thank you for coming in today, and I'd also
pleasure.
like to applaud your efforts and the efforts of the superintendent and her staff for keeping our schools great. So thanks very much.
Thank you for having me.
And we'll see you next time on Portsmouth This Week.